Farzana,
Michael,
greetings. Thank you for coming.
thanks for having me.
You just got back from a whirlwind trip and you're making time for us, so I appreciate that.
Oh, always.
You are the meditation expert, but I've coined you the meditation expert for sure of Vancouver, right? So I trust we are going to not only learn about meditation today and how to better regulate ourselves, but also I know you speak a lot about helping our best selves come through meditation.
Yeah.
So I think that's the direction we're going to go today. I know that's the direction we're going to go today, and a few other paths along the way, but you've been doing this the whole time.
Yeah.
For a while, since 3 years old.
Yeah.
How tell us.
In my religious community where I grew up, we're Sufis.
Mhm.
So we have 4 a.m. meditation. It's optional. Very, very few people attend it. When I was a kid, they used to have this thing where they would actually have the kids officiate the ceremonies for a whole week. And it just exposes children to it. And I mean, as a kid, you're thinking, we're going to go to McDonald's for breakfast afterwards and get the pancakes.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. My mom woke me up for it. And it was, I think, 3:30 in the morning. And it's so different staying up late versus waking up early in the morning. It's just a different feeling.
Mm-hmm.
When you've had that sleep cycle and you're supposed to be in the deepest part of your sleep, but you're not and you're awake, there is a different level of clarity, of awareness, of literally awareness of everything, because you're aware of vibrations and things that aren't there. You're so far away from your material life, from your day-to-day affairs, that every thought in your head is so sharp. It's so clear.
But from the age of 2 and 3.
I mean, I'm describing what I was aware of when I was 2. Like this, that memory of that clarity, that first time the hairs on the back of your neck, on the back of my neck were raising, it kind of felt actually, I mean, as we were getting ready to go to the mosque, first I got to have tea, and I'd never been allowed to have tea. And as an Indian child, you get to have chai. That's like adulthood right there. But ultimately, as we were driving there, it felt like everybody was like beneath the ocean, and the ocean was silky smooth because everyone was asleep. Like the surface of the water was very calm. And my mom and I were like the ripples going across the water as we made our way to the mosque. And we went inside, had a little more tea. Epic moments, very epic
cool.
moments.
Where geographically did you grow up?
In North Van.
Okay.
It's like, and this is like the mosque is this little tiny place, like stuck on an industrial street in North Vancouver. You know where the original Cactus Club was?
No.
Down like Pemberton. Okay, in North Van. Anyways, like right next to there. And yeah, like go in there. And we walked into the hall, and it's pitch black, except for the exit lights. And we sat down, and my mom just handed me prayer beads, and she's just like, say this mantra. And it just didn't feel right to me. And so I just kind of sat there, and I just asked the universe, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? And this like corridor appeared in my mind. It got like really narrow before it expanded into the universe. And there's almost like very, very narrow. And so all my thoughts kind of filtered into this thing and got held there. And I would go over each thought, and I'd be like, can I control this? Can I do anything about this? Do I need to forgive someone? Do I need to work on myself? Like, and that's how and I know I'm 2, and it sounds very complex for a 2-year-old, but life is simpler.
True.
So you either do something or you don't. Like no one's told you all these, like there's all these crazy things about what you should and shouldn't do, and all these weird rules, and you don't have all the pain and suffering to complicate your thoughts. So I just, what am I to do here? I don't want to hold this. I'm going to forgive my brother for being a jerk. Thought God.
Nice.
Let it go. I love him anyways. And because I was 2, I didn't have a lot of thoughts. And eventually the thoughts were gone. The corridor kind of dissolved, and it was just me and the universe. And it didn't feel empty, even though I didn't see light or stars or anything. This is vast expanse of black, really. But it didn't feel empty. It felt connected.
Did it feel kind of full? Not empty. That would be the opposite of empty.
It felt like, oh, this is reality.
This is kind of at peace and full of love. Type moment. Okay, good. Yeah.
Like it just, and I don't even think I could truly contemplate gratitude at that age, but gratitude is almost, can be like a more fuller form of love, so to speak. And I would say it felt beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it was beautiful.
Nice.
Like, and to know that's really beautiful, because I don't know how grateful a child is at that age. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know what a child at that age thinks about.
I think gratitude was an attitude I've certainly grown up with, but I think it blossomed as I got older from having such beautiful experiences to be grateful for them.
Very cool. And so did you continue this daily morning practice all the way throughout?
So for your childhood? For that week, we went to the mosque, and then after the week, I was like, let's go. And my mom was like, oh no, sorry, there's no more. But it was there every day. She just didn't want to take me every day.
Interesting.
Because the kids' week was done. But yeah, I pretty much since then have gotten up every day at 4 a.m. and have meditated. And then I studied Indian dance. And so there was a portion of that was quite spiritual. And I studied the traditional Hindu styles of dance. And I studied and
And so you still do 4 a.m.s?
I do.
Nice. Okay, we'll go back to that as well. Because we're going to a lot of places. But yeah, it's interesting to get your entry into this world, because like you said, you've studied. Oh. I mean, some of your studies are with the one and only Mr. Anthony Robbins, and you're known as one of the best kept secrets for folks in professional sports, right? Because you help people with their mindset in such a way to help them achieve such greatness. So my point being is, I was thinking about this today. I'm like, what is it about Farzana that I really gravitate towards? And it's not just your energy and your smile and your radiant light and all that, but it's I could go on and on and on. Just keep so kind. Well, speak the truth. But it's I think what I landed on, it's that you really walk the talk. Like, you don't just write the book and post on social media. Like, whenever I see you and I'm around you, you are this example of peace and presence and everything you talk about. So I'm like, I would like to learn the steps you have taken and where you have studied and how we can all apply it, because like I said in the opening, you've gotten back from doing talks out east, because you're a sought after expert, and you have courses and books and all this stuff, because you really have put in the work and you help people. But back to the point, you do exemplify it yourself.
Oh, you're very kind. Honestly, I do it because I need it.
Yes, this is all true for all of us.
Because I need it.
Yeah. And then so you're there is something so special about 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. that I love getting up at that hour. I always depends what I have to do the day that is coming up. I'm like, well, this is not going to work out very well if I start my day at 3 a.m. But it's like, you kind of feel like you're cheating a bit, because everyone else is asleep, and you have this really peaceful moment where there's less anxiety around. Energy is kind of pure and nice. It's not like you're staying up late, like 11, 12, 1 a.m. where things are, people that are up at that time of night they can't sleep and they're anxious and maybe they're drinking and all that stuff. So it's a much different energy.
It's and just even like, we were built to meditate. Our bodies go in and out of these states of trance. If you can't sleep, if you're consuming things, doing things that disrupt your circadian rhythms, disrupt the flow of your brainwaves throughout the day, you're going to be suffering in your life, period. Your brain is not going to regenerate the way it needs to. I mean, sometimes half of the time we need to meditate, and I say we need to meditate, is because we have those disruptions in our lives, be it stress, be it substances that we, like a night of drinking or something, sleep deprivation, right? Like, there's all of these things that don't allow us to sleep. properly. And I think sleeping is the bare minimum. Sleeping is like turning your laptop off at night and then turning it on again the next day. And sometimes you actually need to like clean up on your computer. Sometimes you need a reboot and upgrade, like, you know, update your software. Like there's so many things that need to happen that are more than just turning it on and off.
Yeah. On my laptop today, I took a bunch of files and put them on the external hard drive somewhere else so the computer can run a little better. But I have these like these 5 or 10 minute naps sometimes in the afternoon where I literally just fall asleep for like 10 seconds, like you're out for like 5 or 10 seconds, whatever it is, and it doesn't make a noise or something. But it's a full on reboot. And that's like a you know, a compressed version of a full night sleep.
Yes.
Right. But is this like, is that what's the, you know, what's the science behind that, I guess, is the question. Like what is the importance of sleep in and meditation and science, and how from what you have studied has it been shown and proven?
So I mean, you can go to different sciences. Like if you consider traditional Chinese medicine to be a science of its own, they say getting to sleep before 10 p.m. or by 10 p.m. Restores your Wei Qi, which is the energy that protects your body. There are certain aspects of like when you go to sleep that are really adaptive and healthy. But if we talk about just what we can measure neurologically, brain waves, electrical impulses, signals, metabolic function, cellular activity, then I think that there are different kinds of biologies that you have to consider. And I think you have to look at neurodivergence, and
which is what?
Neuronormative. So I think you're looking at nervous systems of, say, an ADHD person, someone perhaps with autism, someone with a combination of those versus someone who's considered neuronormative. And I mean, I don't know what the appropriate terms are, but those were the ones I was trained in. And so I think that someone who's ADHD, for instance, could do really well on 4-hour sleep cycles with power naps in places. And if you do a meditation powered power nap and or just even a nap, get up, move your body and do 10-15 minutes of meditation, and then you get like a second day.
Interesting.
So people with ADHD, after they finish a sleep cycle, they're sharp and most alert right away. That's the time that they will have the greatest amount of success with doing mundane tasks.
Right.
Emails, billing, things like that, things that they wouldn't normally want to do, that are not interest-based for them. And so that works for them. Having exercise works for them. There's certain things that make the nervous system ready to do those kinds of tasks. And so for someone like that, that kind of sleep would be a better cycle. But there are other people, and I would say women who are perimenopausal, for instance, have a very similar need for sleep cycle that teenage boys do, where they need to sleep in and sleep for longer. And perimenopausal women could sleep 11 hours, and that's what they need. And there's just different things in hormones and cycles in the body to look at for sleep. And then add to that how much pressure there is in our world to financially achieve, to show up at your job, to succeed. And imagine you're fighting those biological pressures. Like, how are you now managing all of those things, especially if hormonally your brain is becoming unglued, or if you don't make enough dopamine and serotonin to manage your attention and focus ability with ADHD, or, you know, all these different things. And so I really, really think that with how much pressure we're putting on our children, with how much pressure it is to survive and live in this world. I mean, we're in a time where very few people can own homes now, or will ever own homes.
Which is really stressful.
It's very stressful. I mean, I look at my nephew. He's in grade 12 and he's so ambitious, but that kid is like, he's so driven. Like, it's incredible. He has the energy to do it right now. But like I feel stressed out for him, because they work so hard. It's such a competitive world, and they get onto the world, and like, what are the jobs that they're getting? The jobs don't pay enough money for it. Like, and so this is the pressure that I see people under. And then people are like, well, I don't have time to meditate. Like,
so here we go. And so here we go. Yeah. So this is where you come in. And so let's talk about meditation and what is meditation and why meditation. But also, before we leave that on the sleep topic, how do we know what our patterns are and what we need? And again, how does, so there's the sleep and what we know and what we need, but then there's like the autism and the ADHD and people need different things in that aspect. How do we, what are you seeing in that space and sort of ADHD and, people my age? Like I definitely cannot pay attention like I used to, perhaps. I don't know. I just, how do people sort of get diagnosed or check in or know what they need, either in the sleep aspect or from the neuro sense these days? Like, what do we do?
So, okay, there's a difference between aging, being a bit more
I'm
tired,
sorry. I'm not aging. I'm not aging.
Not you.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
But
I'm joking. I'm reverse aging. No.
Yeah. I would agree with that. You do look younger and brighter.
We try.
So I would say that there's an aspect to just getting older that means having more on your plate.
True.
And having more on your plate, well, you didn't get more RAM for your computer. It's the same computer, and you're just expecting it to run more things at the same time. And that's not to say you don't have unlimited capacity for memory. We don't know the capacity for memory, but your prefrontal cortex, that is kind of like RAM. And that's the part of you that has higher reasoning. And there's an old saying that you have 7 plus or minus 2 capacity of what you hold in your prefrontal cortex. And you actually oscillate very quickly between those 5 to 9 things. And they say if you have ADHD, if you're burnt out, if you're, I don't know, hormonally compromised, for instance, for some reason, or going through something in that regard, then your number actually drops, and your ability to hold things drops. And so if you are someone like yourself with creative projects happening and you're executing everything from the structure to the content to the marketing to all the different steps to like the event creation and planning and that's a lot of things. Like, it's really hard to zero in on the thing that you enjoy the most because they're the things that you have to do. Right? Like, and so that's its own thing.
Yes.
Like, that's what I call a reality check.
Okay. That's like, doesn't need a prognosis or something attached to it. That's just kind of life and what you're doing and building up into it.
I think that's just a lot for any human.
Yes.
And we're in such a high achievement society. And this is something that I see it in my field all the time with motivational speakers. And sometimes I'm like, can we just have a reality check for a minute? Because like, how many fucking hours and minutes are there in the day to do all of these things? Like, if I did every affirmation and cold plunge and thing, another thing that I'm supposed to do to be like living my life truly, I wouldn't be actually living my life. I'd just be doing a bunch of shit that actually isn't being present in my life.
There is a perfect term I saw for that on some Instagram posts, and I can't remember what it is. Right? It's like spiritually something, right? Like just doing all the things for the sake of doing all the things, but none of the things are actually having the effect that you want or need. So what's the solution?
You're
what's the better practice?
Running on, that's just dopamine. You're just getting dopamine. You're checking off a list, giving yourself dopamine and telling yourself, I deserve to feel good. It's the same thing that people kind of did at the beginning of the pandemic, where everyone started cleaning their houses and decluttering. And everyone's like, I feel good about myself. I clean. Yeah. And then at a certain point, it's not enough anymore.
Yeah. And we were all doing all these Zoom calls with like our friends and stuff. And like I was doing Zoom calls with all my buddies back east for like the first couple weeks. And I'm like, why, after a while, we're like, why are we actually doing this? Like, we don't see each other in person anyways. There's nothing different. We're just trying to pack this stuff in and feel like we're more connected.
Feel like we're accomplishing.
And the dopamine, yeah. And I saw, and I was reading an interesting comparison to all the challenges in the news and media and stuff like that. How like they just have to constantly have all this breaking news to keep these dopamine hits coming and keep our attention. When in reality, when you compare to nature, life is actually pretty slow.
Yeah. I call it a dopamine epidemic, and you don't have to have ADHD to have it.
So what do we do?
Because of scrolling and apps and everything, they're all based on
our attention.
Yeah.
Grabbing it so they can
quickly
and keep us there and sell stuff to us and control us and da. So how do we dance with that?
So again, to me, it comes back to being present. There's so many things. Again, diagnosis is another thing. I think you do need to know yourself. You need to know how you function. And where you are not functioning as you desire, you need to find out for yourself whether that is a construct of you having something that challenges you, like ADHD, like autism, like various other things that are out there, or whether it's actually just something you could be doing habitually different. Right. So there's something to look at in that regard. But to jump back to your question, which I kind of lost for a second there.
Well, the sleep. Let's touch on sleep, and then we'll go to meditation. How do we know what sleep we need? Like, how do we?
Are you tired? When you come home at the end of the day, do you have extra energy to enjoy your evening, or are you tired? When you wake up in the morning, do you feel rested and ready for your day, or do you feel like you need more sleep? It's pretty much like,
oh, that's pretty simple.
That's all there is to it. If you are still tired when you wake up, you need to be looking at your physical health and your rest and mental health too, because half of sleep is mental health.
Right. And what about folks that rely pretty heavily on sleeping pills? Because what I know and understand is that you don't get the same sort of sleep. You don't get the same sort of deep sleep.
Even cannabinoids, right? Like, people love the idea of using CBD, THC combos, one or the like either or both, and they don't allow you your full cycles. You know, the biggest challenge that people give me about meditation is that they can't clear the thoughts from their mind. First of all, who the fuck said that you had to clear the thoughts from your mind? It's a brain. You're not trying to stop awareness. You're supposed to just be aware.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have thoughts. Thoughts are allowed to exist. You're allowed to notice that somebody walked by you while you were meditating. You're allowed to notice the temperature change. You're allowed to have thoughts. And the other thing is that I think that people get so caught up in this idea of no thought that they get frustrated, and they don't realize that most of the thoughts that they're having when they sit down to meditate are little remnants that they didn't sort out because they didn't have a proper REM cycle. And our REM cycles are actually where our brain organizes our mind. So there's a huge aspect of, we take all of this stuff in all day, like even just the feeling of your clothes on your skin does get registered in your brain in the day. Like all these little extraneous factors. And when you go to sleep, if you have a proper sleep cycle, the dreams at the beginning of the night and the morning are actually sorting dreams. So they're actually filing things away. And if you don't get that sleep, then you haven't finished your filing. So the moment you sit down and have a quiet contemplative moment, your brain is like, oh, thank God, can we just finish filing things away? And your brain's jumping over here and jumping over there. And like, it's bouncing all over the place because it's trying to restore itself. It's trying to like get you organized.
So if meditation is having a sit in the morning, this is one example. I mean, this is what I do. I do 10 minutes with a timer, and I've been doing it for a while. It's great.
Yeah.
I do it most mornings. So the mornings that I don't feel as organized and collected. But for me, it's like it's 10 minutes long. So the first often 9 minutes and 37 seconds is my brain going, thinking about things. Da, da, da.
Of course it is.
But then often when I can tell when the bell's coming, even after 10 minutes.
Because it's like you just hit the piece.
And yeah, and so if I hit the piece for like a second, it's always right before the bell.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of like, okay, things are organized, and I'm good to move forward with all the doing of life.
Yeah.
So that's relatively normal in terms of sitting down for meditation.
I think you're lucky if it's just 10 minutes.
Meaning
if
usually
9 minutes and 30 something seconds.
Yeah.
You're lucky if there's only 9 minutes and 30 something seconds of
the hectic
activity.
Thoughts.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, we've been talking about, but let's talk about meditation.
Okay.
When people say to me also they don't have time for meditation, my experience is that if I spend 10 minutes in the morning cleaning out and organizing my brain and thinking ahead to the day that is coming, doing that process and thinking about that will 100% save not only 10 minutes, but probably hours later in the day of me not doing things that aren't in alignment with what I want to do. So that's how I negate the time excuse. What do people usually say to you? What's their biggest excuse for, like, why do we need to meditate?
Oh, I think people know they need to meditate. They just don't think that they can.
Well,
and they don't think they have time. And that's why, I wrote the book 1 minute, like 60 seconds, because everybody has a minute. And I'm like, if you take 10 minutes in your car to sit there before you go into your house and see your kids, if you take like 5 minutes in the bathroom before you're going in to do a talk, why not make those minutes count?
And so
right? How do we
make those minutes count? How do we meditate? Yeah. If we have we've been curious about this forever. People that are in our spheres have been talking about this. They're talking about meditation. I've been talking about the benefits of it for a while, and I've only been doing it 5 or 6 years. Can't say enough great things. But if people have been curious, and they're like, what is he talking about? Why? How do they wake up tomorrow morning and do it?
Okay. So first of all, you have to get out of your own way. So I give my 5 rules as quickly as possible. My 5 rules of meditation. 1, you're always doing it right. Okay. It's a practice. It's like brushing your teeth. You're never going to stop brushing your teeth, or you shouldn't. Right. So it's a practice. It's daily hygiene. It's the same thing. If you don't declutter your house regularly, then you're going to have to do a massive cleanup once a year. And you're like, how stuff comes into a place, I don't know. Right. But it does.
Yeah.
Right. You have to declutter. It's the same with our mental faculty. And we're usually so busy that we don't declutter because something bad happens. The friend that you really wanted to see even cancels for you on lunch because they're not well or something happened. And now you're sad about it, but you don't have time because you got to keep going. And those are like little hiccups, right? How many people had like vacations canceled, couldn't plan anything, couldn't do anything over the last few years? There's stuff like that happens all the time that we don't grieve.
So it's the time to think about the things that we need to think about.
No, it's the time that the emotions of those things potentially come up. Okay. And there's a big difference. And people don't, because so much time has passed, and some people, like, they've gone 40, 50, 60 years and they've never meditated. And of course, the first time they sit down to meditate, there's like a wallop of discomfort and emotion. And it's basically layers of emotion that they've never processed in their life. They don't even have a label for it. It feels so overwhelming. They feel like nobody can understand them because they can't even understand themselves. And it's so much emotion. But again, I digress. That's rule number 3. Okay. So number 1, you're always doing it right. You can't get it wrong. If you're itchy or anything, your mind wanders, you have a daydream, that's okay. Dedication to your practice is your practice. You sit down, you show up, you listen. You sit and you listen. Okay. I think of it like you're the therapist, and whatever comes up in your mind and your emotions and your body, that's the client, or that's like your child that you're listening to. Nice. Attentively and lovingly and respectfully. Okay. And so rule number 2, thoughts are not the enemy. Okay. You were built to have thoughts. Your brain doesn't just exist here. It exists in your hands and your feet. And it's not time to make everything do something. We're always being so on, controlling our expressions, controlling our voice, controlling everything. When you sit, it's time to let go and listen. It's time to receive the signals. It's time to allow the feedback to return, to just notice what's going on. And some of that's that decluttering of the brain. Some of it is what I call time travel, where you had something happen and you haven't quite processed it. And you go back to that moment and you go, God, I don't know how I feel about that. Okay, next time I'm going to do this. Okay, but this time this happened. I wish I had done this instead. But okay, so next time I'll do this. And then you go back and forth in time. You revisit the thing that happened. You come back to this moment. You go to the future. You come back to this moment until you're good with it and you let it go. That's a really important part of letting go of things. If you push away that incident, if you push on it, it pushes back at you. And the more you say, don't think that way, the more you say, don't feel that way, well, you're being so disrespectful, right? If I cut you off mid-sentence when you were describing something to me that was important to you, and I was just like, oh, don't feel that way. Don't think that. Just don't think that. How frustrated would you be? Yeah. So all these people trying to have no thought, they're getting really frustrated, right? Next one is emotions are not fluffy things, okay? They're neurochemicals, right? And yes, our emotions are formed from our belief systems and our values, and how events trigger our belief systems and values, activate those chemicals. But they're there, and if you don't process them, they store in your shoulders, in your gut, in your hips, in your body, in your jaw. They stay with you, and they're there for later. Trust me.
Wow.
They are there for later. So you have to feel the emotions to let go of them. And when we were teenagers and bad things happened, we used to get criticized. We were told, you're too emotional, you're too this, you're too that. But we would go to our rooms, lie in our beds, sit in the emotion the way you listen to music in a car. Like
sit fully, in the anger.
Like
usually.
you were in it, and you would maybe do a little time traveling, as I described it just now. And after a while, you kind of are like, okay, well, I can't do anything left anymore. There's nothing left to contemplate about this, and the emotion kind of dissipates. Time evaporates, and it's just you there in the space.
After you've thought about the things and felt the things.
And you've allowed yourself to have that free flow of going to the catastrophe, to going to the possibility, to the catastrophe, to the possibility of like possible catastrophes, right?
Right.
It's called catastrophizing. And there's an aspect of that can be healthy if you're purging the emotions. And then it's like a clean slate.
Just feeling the things, finally.
But adults tell kids, get your head out of the clouds, stop daydreaming. When in fact, get over it. Don't let them bother you. Wherein actually let it bother you, figure out why it bothers you, and help them choose. Like there's actually an adaptive aspect to this where when you have a clean slate, you get to choose now. And that's the part that comes out of the meditation after, right? And so rule number 4, be physically comfortable. If you don't sit on the floor regularly because you haven't grown up doing that, don't sit on the floor cross-legged and make things go numb, right? It's not about impinging nerves.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
Sit on a chair, but sit upright. Like if you're physically able to, I say sit upright. And there's enough things that we deal with in our lives to have to deal with that. And rule number 5 is you're always doing it right.
Nice. Again.
Okay? You're
and
always,
with always
doing
it right.
You cannot get it wrong. It's okay to have thoughts. It's okay to have other things. And again, this idea that you are there to observe. Like if you think about what awareness is, I always look at the statues of the Buddha, which you have one on your shirt, and I love it because there's a little smile always. On every picture of the Buddha, there's just a slight smile. Okay. And the eyes aren't always fully closed. They're often just like looking downwards, like downwards gaze.
Yeah.
And that is awareness. Awareness isn't the cessation of experience. It's the ability to be okay with whatever that experience is, to know that you are the one up here having awareness. So like I kind of go like, can I say this is your earth suit? Okay. Can people see? Okay. This is your earth suit.
And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, know that this is also on YouTube. So yeah. Here we go.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
No, it's good.
So I'm going to hold my hands together like this and say this is your earth suit. Inside is your consciousness, right? Like, I don't care what you believe. You could be atheist, you could be religious, you could be anything. But for us to have this conversation or to engage in listening to this, you have to believe that you have a consciousness.
Which is what? An awareness.
Like an awareness that you exist.
Yes.
That you have a self.
Yes.
Right? And that consciousness is attached or inside of this earth suit. Okay? So if we can all agree on that, this earth suit comes with certain programming. You have sight, smell, taste, touch, sound, an autonomic nervous system. You have like, your cardiovascular system. Like you have all these different things that like kick in for fight or flight, survival, all these things. And as you start, and you even have certain things like phobias and fears, maybe to heights, spiders and things like that to keep you alive. Ancestral memory, if you will, right? Evolved ancestral memory in your DNA. Yeah. But it's like in your DNA.
Yeah.
Right? Like tryptophobia, fear of certain textures of things that would be poisonous in nature. Oh, yeah. Anyways. So you have that, but then you also, when you're growing up, you don't have any filters. So everything you experience kind of starts to attach around you. So let's say your consciousness is the brightest light ever. Okay. And you're in this earth suit. And the earth suit's already kind of like containing the light a little bit, but the light's peeking out, right? So you look at a baby, you see this beautiful glow. You see like glittery eyes. You see infinite potential. Okay. And then they start to have experiences. They get hurt. It's almost like a shudder. They have a belief system. Like you can't trust people. Parent does something awful and they were like, can't trust parent. And life kind of shuts them down. Like, oh, you're not going to get your dreams. And like, like these things start to happen. And now there are differences between experiences, thoughts, and beliefs that form. You get things about gender identity or what you should and shouldn't do. Like for me, what it means to be a girl, loving, good person, this, that, right? All of these things, successful, right? Like talking to someone from the Philippines who is working on dealing with notions of success, meaning having to have children to be successful as a woman. That's a really important part of what she was programmed for. But that really actually doesn't necessarily fit into her life today, but it's in her programming.
Right.
Now, some of these things we chose and some of them we didn't. So we get to a certain age where we're like, wait a minute, like, especially when we're teenagers, we go, wait a minute, I really like that person's attitude. That resonates with me. So something about your consciousness saw something over there and you were like, I like that. I want some of that. And you start to draw things into yourself. But there are a lot of experiences we have where we're not making that conscious decision and we're actually making rash, self-protective things that actually block our light out. And what I would say is that this practice of meditation is the space wherein if you give yourself enough time and space and allow yourself to feel the emotions, those emotions will eventually will dissipate, and in time will lead you to certain things that are not truthful to you, will give you the power to actually open some of those shutters or get rid of them so that you can be illuminated again. Because the only difference between us and that little baby is those belief systems that are in there. And I mean, to be more literal, like all of these like neurons in our brains are like a tangled knot. And how do you untangle a knot? You have to stretch it out. You have to get space. Meditation is the space, right? Only when you stretch it out can you then consciously decide, okay, this is where I'm going to unravel this. This is where I'm going to unravel that. And if we don't do that, how can we do any other work in our life?
Epic. So if you're someone I'm in my 40s, but maybe people in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever it is, but why come to meditation? Like, why want to feel these things? Why want to spend the 10 minutes? Why want to sit with the thoughts and the emotions? And I think I would hope if there's people, we know them and we see them, and at times we have been them. They're struggling and they don't know why, because they achieve, done, success, career, houses, boats, jobs, all the things, and still something's off.
Because you're so lonely if you can't be in company with yourself.
Oh.
You can achieve and not feel happy or at peace or fulfilled, because you can't be lonely when you're in empathy with yourself. And a huge practice of meditation is having empathy for yourself while you listen to yourself. It is the higher consciousness having empathy for the human experience. And there is something to be said for being in alignment in all the levels of your consciousness that gives you strength of presence, so that no matter what you're going through, you can just be here right now. And you can accomplish and do and do and do. But if you don't have that when you're still and you're alone with yourself, you're not happy. I'm sorry. I've not seen true happiness in someone that can't be with themselves.
And what do you mean?
Distract and avoid.
What do you mean by be with yourself? Like sit with yourself for 10 minutes. I mean, we can be with ourselves and be cutting the lawn or doing the dishes and
doom scrolling on your phone.
Doom scroll. Like I can sit on the couch and scroll on the phone by myself, but that's not really being with myself. Yes. Being with myself is sitting and being with myself and thinking about challenging things that have happened and facing some fears that are perhaps coming.
So it's the distinction between the Buddhist idea of detachment and allowance. Okay. To be able to detach from the events of your life and go, acknowledging that that's happening and I'm allowing it to happen. I'm allowing these emotions to be processed. I'm allowing myself to have these thoughts. And I'm noticing that I am the sky and these thoughts and emotions are the weather, right? And they're just going to, someday it's blue sky, someday it's stormy, and that's okay. That's detachment and allowance. It's an acknowledgement. It's a presence with those things that are going on. It's not ignoring it. It's presence with, versus distraction and avoidance. Okay. You avoid all the things. You don't want to look at them. You're just like, no. And it's pushing at you harder and harder. And you're like, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel so frustrated? What's going on? I'm just frustrated all the time. I feel aggravated. I feel restless. Like that can happen too. Right. And so what do? We distract ourselves. We get busy, we do these things, and we're like, if I can do this, I'll feel better. And maybe in the process of doing some of these accomplishments, we start to feel better because we do good for others. We're able to contribute. And through doing good for others, we learn lessons while we help others. And I think that can be really beneficial. I can say for myself, in all the years of the clients that I've seen throughout the years, 100%. I used to feel so guilty for charging, because I'd be like, I get so much out of it. I feel so guilty. Nice. Like this was like my therapy, even though I did it for you.
Nice.
But at the same time, or should say, and at the same time, there comes a time when we have to be present, because avoiding things isn't doing anything. Distracting from them isn't doing anything. Like people were just buying things left, right, and center during the pandemic. I joke about the pandemic, and I actually think that it's like scientifically very valid, if we could have scanned people's brains, to say that the world got thrown into a 3-month Vipassana and they weren't prepared for it.
And it didn't go exceptionally well.
No. And if people don't know what a Vipassana is, it's an 11 hours a day for 11 days silent retreat where you sit on the floor. They actually make you sit on the floor and you are uncomfortable, and you are not, it's not a comfortable experience for most people. And I say that the world got thrown into this because we were isolated and we didn't choose it. At least when you go to a Vipassana, you're like, I want to do this. I want to see what comes up. I'm ready for what comes up. I'm going to face this stuff. Well, the rest of the world was forced to face stuff because they were forced into sitting and being pushed into spaces where all those emotions that We haven't processed our whole lives, came up, and what happened? People felt really lonely. Did they have coping mechanisms? No. Nobody's taught us how to feel through our emotions. Everyone tells us to get over it, right? Like, that's the world. Get over it, move on, especially if you're high achievers.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Well, we coped with it during the pandemic by going on Amazon and buying stuff.
Exactly.
Or going on social media and looking at our equivalent on the other side of the social media, looking at us doing the same stupid things, wasting each other's time, doing the same, sharing the same stupid things. So it's so the distraction, instead of sitting with what do people usually need to. So we have person X who has accomplished a lot. They've done great things, but still perhaps not feeling that element of happy. May or may not be aware of that. They're kind of running out of things to do, and but we distract ourselves from often feeling what we need to feel to access that happiness and get back to how we were when we were born with that light. So I guess the question is, what do people? We kind of know how we distract ourselves. What do people usually need to, for example, sit with and face and feel, so that, and we've established that the gateway to this is literally sitting and thinking and feeling what we need to feel, meditation. Like, what are some examples of things that in the folks that you've worked with that typically need to get faced so that we can feel amazing?
The idea that it is an accomplishment to have no thought. And I will say it again and again. I put it in the rules, and people will still say, but I still had thoughts. It is not about the thoughts. It is about knowing, understanding, and loving yourself. Okay. That is one of the hardest things. And to love yourself means you have to forgive yourself. Okay. And to forgive yourself means that you have to take the blame away from other people. Because at the end of the day, even if someone did something horrible to you, they're gone now. They don't give a shit about what happened to you.
Right.
Excuse my language. But they don't care. Maybe they do, but that you may never know, right? And now you're stuck here carrying that with you. And so the thing is how much do you love yourself? Can you love yourself enough to let that go? Can you love yourself enough? Can you get to the point, like for me, I truly live the fact that I am not the experiences of my life. My experiences are things that I have chosen to learn things from. Because if I shared some of my experiences, which I don't need to do, it doesn't matter. Like, nobody would fault me for being like broken and, like, if I didn't do anything for the rest of my life, people were like, oh, but she's been through a lot. And fuck that shit. I have one life. I came here to live it. I don't necessarily have a lot of time. I do have some spiritual beliefs, but for what I know right now, this is my life. I've got one and I'm going to live it. And the events of my life are not who I am. So we need to be able to let events pass. Emotions have awareness that they do not last forever. They're just chemicals that are based on your belief systems, and that means you can do some work on them, right? But you are a constant. This little spark of consciousness in this earth suit, that's the constant, right? Like, that is the thing that you have. Like, even in times where I suffered brain damage and injury, I still had awareness that I wasn't functioning properly. And because I had that awareness that I wasn't functioning properly, and I couldn't even understand how badly I wasn't functioning because the injury was so bad, I was still able to start to do things to heal my body, to get to the point where I can actually have this conversation with you and put full sentences together again.
So what you're describing is really taking ownership for your own life and not being a victim to other circumstances.
You have to. That's the hardest part of the work, is taking that ownership, as you said. You have to take the ownership. You have to think about what you're holding on to, what you're ready to let go of, who you're ready to forgive.
And,
right? And how much you love yourself and your willingness to do that. Because Forgiving them is actually about loving yourself.
Right.
Letting it go is about loving yourself and giving yourself freedom.
So what does loving,
and that's hard.
Yeah. What does loving yourself really, really look like? Is it sitting down and having the thought that, or the awareness that what you are thinking and feeling is literally punishing you each day, over and over, and maybe not all day, every day, but for a certain amount of the time it is, and then realizing that you don't want to treat yourself that way, or make yourself feel that way.
That's a nice surface level conscious attitude, to be like, be your own best friend. I say that all the time. If your friend said that to you, if they said to you what you say to yourself in your head, would they be your friends?
Yeah.
And that's a great start. Some people need to be like, if that was your child and you said that to your child, and that helps them, because it's like a little more extreme. But ultimately, for the people at home who are going to start meditating tomorrow, you need to think about it as though it was just a conversation with someone, and everything that comes up is them really needing to be heard. How are you going to listen to them? How are you going to listen to the person you care most about in this world when they're telling you how they feel right now? Even if it's just like you are giving them this period of time. Like when you go to a therapist, they're giving you that period of time and they are there for you 100%. I'm asking you to give a minute to yourself. I'm asking you to give 5 minutes to yourself, 10 minutes to yourself even. And in that 10 minutes, like, this is how bad we are at this. All you have to do for that 10 minutes is respectfully, lovingly listen to everything that comes up the way you would the person you care about most in this world.
Nice.
That is the first step to meditating. And it's harder than you think to not be critical.
If someone's listening to this and they, at certain points of this recording, I'm going, oh yes, I am going to start my meditation practice tomorrow. But then perhaps they don't, because of the fear of these sorts of things, that what they're going to realize they're saying to themselves, or things that they need to process and feel from the past. Do you come across that fairly often? It's like, I just don't want to go there.
Yeah. And my question to them is, well, when are you? At what point is this going to be so heavy that you can't carry it anymore? What's going to happen if you keep continuing down this path and you don't deal with it?
What does usually happen?
Well, it's bad.
Yeah. Illness, death.
Self-harm.
Yeah.
Right? Just to like understate what I'm alluding to. But there's been a lot of that. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen as much unaliving as we have in the last couple of years.
So what?
Sorry, but
it's
that comes from not being able to be with yourself, right?
Because it's hard to be with ourselves, and we're distracted in so many ways from being with ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we're distracted because we don't want to. We don't want to face the reality of things. So at some point in time, you're going to have to do that. So the question is, when do you want to do it? And there are different kinds of meditations. There are different ways to do it. I mean, for God's sakes, just listen to some depressing music and allow yourself to cry it out. Like create a grief playlist. I had one when I used to teach classes. I used to teach classes at Y Yoga, and I had a grief playlist.
Must have been so popular.
Oh, and I would do like hips and heart openers, and like people would just be like falling. And I remember I'd always get like one person who'd come in who was actually in a really good mood. And they were like, that was really intense today. And I'd be like, I'm really sorry, but could you sense the room? And they're like, yeah, like the room needed it. But like sometimes that's what you need to do. And I don't care how you do it. You have to start listening to your emotions, and you have to start listening to your thoughts respectfully.
This is the gateway to living a fulfilling and happy and full and radiant life.
Call it like it is.
So it's not buying more things. It's not getting different drugs. It's not a different type of car. It's not doing more. It's sitting with ourselves and being kind of happy with who we're hanging with.
Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with getting older every year because I like myself more every year. I respect myself more every year.
You're kind of becoming more, yeah, you're
Like,
not just being more fun to be with yourself. You're like, wow, I keep on finding myself to be more interesting and surprising
I'm
myself
like,
with what I
I'm
can do.
cool. Like and I'm also embracing how much of a nerd I am. But
Oh,
like,
good. Please
like,
do.
right? Like you gotta
Continue.
embrace it. Like if I could change one thing from the book, I would change you can be your best self to be your true self.
Right.
Because I think there's an aspect of best self which is effortful. And I would definitely prefer that people do the work so that they can actually be. Because I don't know, I'm tired. Life is busy. I don't have time to try. I just want to be able to be real.
Trying is exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. And you're actually not in true power. You're in true power when you have this core of energy and you're in a being state. And then you can use that energy where needed, where it is needed. But I think like trying means you're trying to push energy out all the time, as opposed to being illuminated because you have this core of energy inside you and you're settled with it.
Yeah, it's so cool when you see people where they know what they want, who they are, what they do, when they want to leave the party. They're not staying longer. They're not putting on a face or doing anything else. They're here, they're there, then they're gone. Like, wow, they don't give a shit, right? And like in a great way. Like they're not trying to be rude or anything. Like, well, this is me. I'm doing this tomorrow. I'm leaving now. This is I don't have to put on a show or anything. I'm wearing my jeans. I don't care, right?
Yeah.
For example, right? And it's like, wow, that person understands who they are and what they need and where they're going. It's fun when you see people where you see people and you have a sense that they are cultivating their life and creating their life and you can tell they're going somewhere. Like, so how do you, so that's kind of like, they're present and they have the power, but they're also creating in the future, or they're manifesting this and that, and they're kind of guiding their way and their journey. So how does that fold into the present moment and meditation, like our wishes and our dreams and how we want to, because you can read all the books where you're supposed to think about the thing and feel the emotions and it'll come to you and life is great and magic and all that. But what's the proper way to manifest?
Well, so there's a difference between different types of meditations. Like a lot of people are like non-attachment, non-attachment, non-attachment. Great. That's fine. But we're humans and we live in a world and we're here in this linear existence and we've been given a gift of this life. And I think that you can't have goals without having attachment. And so it's kind of the balance or the dance between allowing yourself to detach from the things that do not serve you, like to acknowledge and process and take that energy that you've reclaimed from not being attached to things that are irrelevant and attaching them to what you truly want, right? And then you have to tie it into your behavior. You can't just create a vision board and then not do any of those things. You can't create a vision board with all this body and fitness stuff and not walk.
You got to do it. You do the work.
You got to do some work. You got to look after your health. You got to, like actually get out there. If that's what you want to do, it's a journey.
Right. But it's okay to have a vision of where we're going and fun to do the work towards getting there.
In fact, if you don't have the vision, and this is actually something when I deal with my ADHD clients, it's very difficult for them because their vision is constantly evolving and changing. And they have a hard time keeping the vision as one thing. And then they're afraid, if they've been doing it for a long time, they're actually afraid to make the vision too big because it's too many steps to get there. And it's overwhelming then because it seems too big. And so it's actually being able to goal set and have someone support you in this and having like a buddy system where you can set the visions for the short term, the long term, everything, and to like actually build out what the values are around it.
Nice. Is that typically some of the work that you do with your clients? How would you categorize
I would say I don't do as much of the goal setting. I'm more the person who you'd go to. Like obviously we can't do goal setting, but I'm more the person that like when you have those goals set, we'll set them. But that's like like a quick job, but it's the part of you that can't take action on it. What is the thing that's happening in your mindset that is holding you back from that? What is the belief system? What is the fear? What is the thing that's holding you back from that? And tweaking that. And I feel like if I were to work with someone like yourself, you've been doing a lot of work. So the things that are going on for you, like, I'm not going to throw a platitude at you, right? I'm not throwing a basic meme at you or a platitude. You've already thought about those things. Like, what you're dealing with is going to be much more subtle, right? And it's those subtle things that it's like a small little distinction for an avalanche type effect.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I would say my specialty is with those kinds of things, because I find most of the people that I get to work with are highly gifted, highly self-actualized, very successful. Like, they're killing it in life.
And they're coming for you just for that one thing that's perhaps, they want to take that extra step, or they want that element of peace that is perhaps not an achievement, but it's a feeling.
Yeah. Right. And it's like, because the achievement means less to them than the meaning of it. There are people that achieve things and they're like, yeah, but I should have done it like this, or I should have done it like that, or I didn't do enough of this part of it. It's just like, and everyone has different things. Like, whereas someone else would be like, I did that. Like, I met someone who was just like, oh yeah, I used to do that back in the day. And I was like, oh really? When did you do that? Oh. And it was like some high school project that they did one week in school.
Nailed it.
Like,
well done.
And like, the way they were talking about it was with such confidence that they actually landed a job out of it. And I was just like, oh no, wait, when did you do that?
Interesting.
High school grade 8 project.